Thanks for joining me, I'm Rutten, and today we'll be drawing a simple quadriptych landscape in Procreate using mixed media. I'll incorporate pencil, chalk, pastel, crayon, and charcoal. This is a super easy abstract drawing that anyone can follow along with. As you can see, this is just a cloudy sky with some overlapping hills, a sun, and a couple of trees. I'll add this reference image for free to my YouTube vault. You can follow along with the default Procreate brushes, or you can download my hard media brush pack for Procreate if you want these exact brushes. There's a link to all this in the video description. I've already created a new canvas from the gallery that is 1920 by 1080 pixels. You can choose something larger if you like. Let's start with a sketch and pencil so that we can create the boundaries of each shape and medium. I'll select my pencil oil brush in a dark gray color. I'll zoom out to fit my canvas on the screen without it getting covered by the palettes. I'll sketch in the first hill. This will be below the center of the canvas, and it curves down to the right. When sketching, it's okay to make extra lines. You can switch just about any brush to an eraser and erase the lines you don't want. And this is just a rough guide. I will be drawing over it with other mediums, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Next, I will return to the brush mode and sketch in more hills that recede into the distance. These will get smaller and smaller. Stop just above the midway point of the canvas. Now I will draw a circle for the sun on the right. You can decide how big you want it to be, but for a nice composition, I'd keep it mostly on the right third of the canvas. It's alright to overlap the hills since we can erase to clean it up. After that, I will draw the trees on that foreground hill on the left side. First, 2 sticks, then a circle and an ellipse. I'll thicken those trunks up a bit more. Now let's divide the canvas into 4 columns, one for each type of medium. Tap and hold and drag out a straight line. This is known as quick shape mode. You may want to undo and retry a few times to get it straight. Next, I'll clean up any unwanted lines from my sketch using the eraser mode. Then I'll use the pencil to clean up the lines. Go back and forth with the pencil and eraser to make the objects look like they are overlapping each other. I'll add some of the trunk over the leaves of the trees. Then I'll add a crescent shape inside the leaves to indicate where a shadow will be. This will help the form look slightly three-dimensional. I've done this on the sun too, but in this case it indicates where the colors will fade from yellow to red. I'll add some curvy and wavy lines to the land to show that there will be some curvature and texture there. Notice I'm not drawing some exact shape, I'm just letting my pencil dance around. This is a gesture that comes out of you, not a tedious line you have to draw exactly. I'll make some squiggles in the sky as well to indicate clouds and texture from the medium. Next, I'll go to the Layers menu, tap on the layer name, and choose Rename. I'll name this layer Sketch. After that, I'll tap on this N icon, which opens a menu where I will reduce the opacity of the layer so the sketch becomes fainter. Now I'll add a new layer by clicking on the plus icon and position it below the sketch layer. I'll name that layer Sky. I may as well create more blank layers so that I can just get it all done at once. This helps keep the objects separate, which will come in handy later for shading and adding texture. It also helps you envision how each object overlaps in the composition. Eventually, I'll have copies of these layers for each of the styles in this quadriptych, so there will be a lot of layers. The advantage to using all of these layers is that it keeps things separate, which prevents you from ruining areas you are happy with. As you can see, I have layers for the land far, land front, tree, and trunk. Make sure they're in this order since that's how they are ordered in the image. With the trunk layer selected, I'll swipe right on the layers beneath to add them to the selection. Now I will choose a group, and that will place them together. I'll close the group with the downward arrow, and swipe left on the group to duplicate it. I'll duplicate it 2 more times so that I have 4 total. I did this because each group will have layers with identical names, and this is much faster. I'll name each group based on the medium it will contain. There's pastel, charcoal, crayon, and chalk. Not all of the objects in this scene span all 4 columns of the quadriptych, so you will need to delete, rename, and add some layers. In the chalk group, I'll delete the trunk. Next, I'll name the tree layer Sun. I'll move the sun beneath the land far. After that, collapse the chalk group and open the crayon group. Now move the tree and trunk layers beneath the land far. Rename the tree layer to clouds, then rename the trunk layer to sun. Now we are ready to start drawing on some of these layers. I'll collapse the crayon group and open the pastel group. On the sky layer, I'll zoom into the leftmost column and pin the color picker to make it easier to access. I'll select the pastel rough brush or something similar and choose a sky blue. With a small brush, I'll draw from the top down using firm to light pressure so that I create a gradient from dark to light blue. It's okay if it looks a little rough, that's what I'm going for here. Next, I'll select the land far layer and cover the most distant hill with that same blue color. On the land front layer, I'll select a medium red color and fill in the next layer of land. Again, if you leave some gaps, it looks more traditional and spontaneous. Now I'll add a lighter version of the red, which makes a pink, and add it over the top to create lighting. Again, sloppy is good here. I'll tap and hold with my finger to sample the red color again, and with a fine brush, I'll draw over the pink to break it up. I'll add some of that red on the tree layer to create an oval for the leaves. After that, I'll stencil off the layer using Alpha Lock. You can find this by tapping on a layer, but I have created a shortcut for it in the quick menu. Now tap and hold on the pink to sample it, and use that with a fine brush to add a highlight to the tree nearest the light source. That's the sun on the right. Sample the original red again, and draw over the pink to break it up. Next, go to the trunk layer, select a brown that is darker than the red, and choose the pastel square brush to draw on a trunk. I'll enable Alpha Lock on this layer, and darken the brown to add a shadow on the left side and base of the trunk. Next, I'll go to the tree layer, enable Alpha Lock, and fill the leaves in thicker with the red and pink colors. On the land far layer, I'll sample a lighter blue from the sky and draw over it. Then I'll sample the original blue and draw with some of that over it. I'll sample a very light blue, and on the sky layer, I'll paint over the sky to break it up. Then I'll sample one of the darker blues from the top and draw over it again. I'm doing this to help the drawing look more natural, so each section has a lot of texture. After that, I'll use this brush in the blend mode to blend some of the blue colors together. I'll enter the selection mode, and I'll draw a rectangular selection that covers the second quadriptych column. I'll select the sky layer, and use the eraser mode to remove any pastel that went over the line onto the next column. I'll repeat that on the land far and land front layers. The selection is keeping that edge nice and sharp. Double check to make sure you removed all of the pastel from those layers inside the second column. Now let's move on to the charcoal section. I'll go to the charcoal group and select the sky layer. I want to select a light gray and fill the layer with that to simulate an off-white paper. Drag the color circle onto the canvas to invoke color drop. I'll select a dark medium gray in the charcoal soft brush. Draw from the top of the sky downward using heavy to light pressure to make a gradient. With a darker gray, darken the sky near the top. This brush naturally creates a nice texture. We want this to look distinct from the column of pastel. I'll select charcoal hard and go over the sky again to darken the top. I'll go to the land far layer and fill that in with a scribbly stroke. Since these layers won't overlap correctly if I separate them, I'll just paint in the rest of the land below using the same brush. Separate the hills visually using different stroke opacity and line directions. The bottom hill should be a bit darker, so you can choose a darker color. You can delete that extra land far layer and rename this one to just land. On the land layer, I'll use the erase mode to cut away the land where it would be overlapped by the tree leaves. Then I'll go to the sky layer, sample the base sky color, and paint over the tree area to remove the dark clouds. Next, I'll make my brush smaller and darker and fill in the tree. Use a darker color on the shadow side. I'll continue adding details to the tree like a trunk, finer leaf texture, and a cast shadow pointed away from the sun. You can even sample the light gray background color and add that back over the top. I know this is a lot of back and forth, but that's an easy way to build up detail. Now we are ready to move on to the crayon column of the quadriptych. For the sake of making this video not too long, I won't get into the granular details here. I think you get how to move between layers. I'll make a selection and use the crayon soft brush to build up the sky. I want this one to be more colorful. I'll have some of the objects flow between the sections of the quadriptych, but others can have a unique appearance. I want this to look like different worlds. I want each column to exemplify the characteristics of each medium, but still have an overall harmony to the scene. Feel free to choose colors that you like. Just try to match the darkness or lightness of the colors I use. The sky should be darker on the top and get lighter as you move down like it does in the other two columns. Now let's color in the sun using warm colors like red, orange, and yellow. After that, I'll fill the hills with some various colors. Again, I want this to be a drawing that anyone can do, so don't worry about choosing the right colors. Just color like a kid and have fun. Since you are making digital art, you can try colors on the canvas, and if you don't like them, undo and retry something else. Experiment and discover what works best. For this bottom hill, I'll give it 2 tones. This could represent form, lighting, or maybe even a difference between dirt and grass. Don't forget this little corner here, and feel free to sample colors and clean up the edges a bit. Now for the final column, which will be chalk, make a selection, fill it with a dark gray, and then use lighter chalk colors over it. I'll use the chalk rough brush. I'll start with the sky, leaving negative space for the sun so that the colors do not overlap. After that, I'll use some green for the most distant land, and then a yellow for the sun using chalk smudgy. Again, I'm going for some consistency, but not all the way consistent. Back to chalk rough, and I will finish adding in the hills with different colors. Again, be free with the colors you choose. There is no right or wrong in this drawing since it's abstract. Also, you can choose to line up the edges exactly, but I'm not going to worry about it since I want this to look consistent but not precise. I'll repeat that two-tone effect on the land for the chalk side as well. Now that I've filled in each panel, it's time to bring them together into a cohesive illustration that looks like it's all done on one page. If this were a traditional drawing, there would be some overlap where the mediums go outside their boundaries. In other words, I'm going to add some imperfections to make this look more natural. I'll make a new layer called All above the groups of layers. I'll brighten the center of the sun a bit, then sample colors from the scene and extend their edges a bit onto the neighboring columns. If I happen to see somewhere I'd like to change color-wise, I can do that now as well. Just go across all of the columns and add some finishing touches. The great thing about abstract art is that you can just make art without having to worry about drawing something realistically. You can express a subject, scene, or emotion through your own unique perspective. Photorealism is just photorealism. There is little room for expression. It's difficult to tell one photorealistic painting from another. Abstract art, on the other hand, is an opportunity to represent a subject in a way no one else has. There are many well-known painters who started out painting realistically, then near the end of their careers took up abstract art. I'll add to the pastel and charcoal as well. Try to make all of the columns equal in terms of detail and effort. Since you are doing this stuff on a separate layer, there is little risk in messing anything up. Experiment with different brushes too, but try to keep the look consistent as far as the medium for each column. I think I'm just about done adding details here and we can move on to the next step. As a final optional step, you can add some dividing lines on a separate layer above all other layers. You can certainly leave it like this without the lines, but I thought it would be nice to demonstrate what you can do. With white selected and the pastel rough brush active, I'll tap and hold to drag out a straight line that will act as a border. It can be tricky to get the lines exactly vertical. You can undo to get it perfect, or just accept that it's going to be a little flawed and that helps it look more real. And with that, we have a finished drawing done in Procreate. I knew you could do it. Overall, this took me around 40 minutes, but the footage was obviously sped up. If it takes you longer, that's okay. If you're interested in watching the real-time version of this process, you can access that along with many other longer lessons by becoming a member. I also have a demonstration video that shows how each of the brushes in my hard media brush pack work if you're interested in learning more. And I'd love to see your finished artwork. You can share it on my community page. I'll link you to all that in the video description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.